Right. Welcome, ladies. Thank you, Mary Beth, for joining us, especially during the holidays. I know everybody is really busy during the holidays, so it's great that we can still make this happen. The Things We Wish Were True was the book we read for December. A great book, a great novel. It had a lot of applause across all of our chapters, actually. A lot of really good feedback. Everybody loved the book, and it was a really good it wasn't too long. We read the Knicks before that, so this was a welcome change. So I will let Mary Beth introduce herself. I actually do have an introduction here for you, if just bear with me. So Mary Beth Mayhew, am I saying it wrong?
Mayhew, yeah.
Whalen is the author of The Things We Wish Were True and 5 previous novels. She speaks to women's groups around the U.S., and she's the co-founder of the popular women's fiction site, She Reads. Mary Beth and her husband, Kurt, have been married for 25 years, and they are the parent of 6 children, which I can't even imagine, ranging from young adult to elementary age. The family lives in North Carolina, and Mary Beth spends most of her time in the grocery store, so I can't wait to hear about the grocery store. But occasionally it's long enough to scribble some words. She's always at work on her next novel. So please take it away.
Well, that's pretty much it. That sums up my life. I go to the grocery store far too many times a week. And when they leave me alone long enough to write, that's what I try to do. That has not happened with this Christmas break, unfortunately, because I'm back on deadline again, but they go to school soon. So we'll resume normal activities when they go back to school, I guess.
So 6 children. And sorry,
yes.
Is the youngest, and how old is the eldest?
The youngest, sorry, I'm making sure I don't go out of frame. The youngest is 12, so it's a lot easier than it was when I started all this. And then the oldest is 25. So 3 of them are basically out of the house. I mean, that's what we call it. They are, doing college and young adult life, and then 3 are at home now. So it's much lighter than it was once upon a time.
Well,
and I apologize for my voice. I've had a cold, so I hope you guys can hear me.
We can, absolutely. And congratulations. Okay. Raising 6 children is, I can't even imagine.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane.
So how long have you been writing for? Did you always write? Was there a career before writing, or were you straight into it?
I just say that's what I came with. Like, everybody gets something in life, and that's what I got. I was very young when I first, as long as I can remember, as soon as I could hold a pen and make words, that's what I was doing. I was making up stories and characters and families, and I loved, I was pretty young and had a baby name book that I kept so that I could pick names of characters. And I always had a notebook growing up and would write stories. And my kids, I did not realize that was weird until I had my own children and tried to tell them, when they were looking for something to do, I would say, well, let me give you a notebook and you can go write a story. And they would look at me like, this is not school. Why would I want to do that? And to me, that was just always so much fun, was to, create a story and a world and characters. And so I've just always done it. And then, of course, we had the kids, and that was all consuming for a long time. And then when the youngest was about 3, I wrote the first novel, which was The Mailbox, and that's kind of what launched it all. And I've written, give or take, a book a year since then. So, yeah.
So how many books altogether?
The Things We Wish Were True was the 6th. And then since then I've come out with When We Were Worthy. That just came out this fall. So that was number 7, and I'm working on number 8 as we speak.
And are all of them standalone novels, or are there some series in there?
They're all standalone. They all can be read by themselves. They don't. I don't know that I have the fortitude to do a series. Honestly, I admire authors who carry a series so much, because by the time I'm done with the book, I'm so done with those characters and that situation. I'm just like, I don't ever want to talk to you people again, because it's just such a consuming task to get a novel from, first glimmer of an idea to actually published. By the time you get through edits and copy edits and first pass pages and all that, you've seen it so much. It's like, I never want to see those people again. I just want to start afresh with a whole new batch of people. So
That's so curious because I've talked to a lot of authors over the years, and some of them are completely the opposite. They're like,
Oh
I'm
no.
mourning the death of my author or my
I,
character.
I know, not me. I'm like, bye-bye. Have a nice life. Don't call me. And I'm not going to call you. No, I mean, some of them are very sweet. And like in this novel, Kaylee, to me, I just loved her so much. And, of course you love your characters, but I just I always say, like, I'm always promoting one book, writing/editing another book, and then thinking about the next book. So I've always got my feet kind of in three different camps. And the one that I'm thinking about is always the sweetest one because it's like a baby that hasn't learned to talk yet. Like it hasn't talked back. It's so sweet still. It hasn't misbehaved yet. And so now I'm in the edits with the one I'm working on now, and it's completely misbehaving. So of course the new book is so much better than the current book because that one's already misbehaved. So, they just have minds of their own sometimes.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Ladies, if you have any questions, you're absolutely welcome to ask them if you want to come on live and ask them. If you want to ask them via chat, then they're on the right-hand side. You can see that you can type a message, and I will ask Marybeth live if that's what you'd like to do. But please feel free to ask live. We're happy to have you here and happy to have you on video. So back to you, Marybeth. You were talking about your 5 children and you telling them that they should be writing in notebooks and them looking at you like you had 3 heads. Is there one of them that might follow in your tracks?
Oh, definitely. There's several of them now that they're older and they kind of get it. My college son is home for the holidays, obviously, and he's steadily working on a novel, and he's in the room across the hall from us, and I'll come out and he'll be at his computer, and I'm kind of jealous because right now I'm not doing anything but cooking and fetching things for people. And so I see him writing and I'm like, oh, I wish I was in that place right now. So I'm proud of him that he's actually majoring in film and writing/English. So he's definitely bent that way. And then I have a daughter who, my second born, she majored in communication, and she's kind of confessed that she's starting to think about stories and stuff. My kids, they grew up in it, so they don't really appreciate that there's anything special to it until they've gone out into the world and kind of discovered not every family's like this, not every family talks like this or thinks like this or whatever. And so now they're realizing, that is kind of a neat thing to have in your background. So hopefully it'll serve them well. I hope. I don't know. You do the best you can with what you got to give them, and that's what I had. So
absolutely. What a gift. So let's dive into the novel. Ladies, again, on the right hand, please feel free to ask any questions you have. So the novel is set, and I don't know anything about the States. I was telling Marybeth before you lovely ladies got on that I am a Canadian. So I was just wondering if the place where it takes place, Sycamore Glen, is that a real town?
No, it is completely made. The name of the neighborhood is made up. It is not. It's not what I did was not real, but it is highly based on my own neighborhood. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And so, in fact, I'm dressed right now because when we finish here, we're going out with some neighbors and friends, and these particular neighbors and friends, they all swear they're in the novel. And I'm like, you've clearly not read the novel because I'm not sure you would want to be in the novel if you knew what goes on in the novel. So I always say, I'm quick to say the setting is definitely based in my neighborhood, but the people are not. They're not at all.
Okay, very good.
Hi.
I think it's okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Sorry, sometimes there's some noise from the people calling in.
Oh, okay.
But we're good. So there's so much going on in this book, and this with the swimming pool and the pool with the pool with the mother that's not around. And was the little girl being and I'm going to totally just throw in a spoiler right at the beginning here. Was the little girl at the end, maybe I'll just say it like that, always part of the story?
The little girl at the end. All right, give me a.
Which little girl? The little girl that is freed.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, yeah. Um, some of that, yeah, I would have to say she was. It's funny because you're going to trip me up on this some because, like I said, this book is like 2 books ago, so I'm trying to remember
What happened?
everything and what was I thinking at the time. And I have lots of dead brain cells thanks to lots of children, so bear with me. Yes, she was the story always intended to be kind of what what came out of Kaylee and her presence in a new part of the neighborhood. Obviously, she lived there, but she didn't live where she didn't live with Zell. So I just wanted, like I said, I felt like Kaylee was the hero of the novel. Um, and I just wanted her. I wanted to give her a chance to shine, and what happens with her and what she ultimately uncovers in a lot of ways, not just with the little girl. Um, it's part of who she is. So
I wasn't expecting that, I have to say. Although I mean, I know, like you mentioned it very early on that this little girl had gone missing, so I always kind of had that playing on the back of my head somewhere. So when she came back into the story, I wasn't surprised that she came back into the story, but actually, what had happened to her was a surprise to me. I do have
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I think the collective conscious. Just what we see in the news and everything. That's been something that I've seen enough now that I wanted to I love to flip the camera around and tell the other side of the story. And to me, every time we see something like that happen, I think, what about the neighbors and what did they think and how did they feel? And this was a chance for me to sort of explore that a little bit. Because you always see those interviews with the neighbors, and they're like, "Oh, we had no idea. He was the nicest guy, or whatever." And I just wanted to flip the camera around and say, "All right, here's your turn. What was it like?" So
You make a good point because I feel like in this case, Zell kind of knew that he was just not quite right.
yeah, yeah. She did, and she didn't trust herself, and I think that's also a lesson for all of us. If something doesn't seem right or feel right, pay attention to that. And sometimes, I mean, the older I get, the more I learn to trust my gut, and that's been just a lesson for me as a human being, especially as a mom. Trust your gut, listen to it. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, it's right. So
For sure. We have a question here from Katie. Thank you.
yeah, thanks,
He
Katie.
says, it's about your writing process. How do you keep track of so many characters and telling each chapter from a different character's viewpoint?
Well, the very first time my editor acquired this was a new editor, new situation. And we had the big, phone conversation where you talk about the book and all that. And she asked me the exact same question. And this is how I answered. So I answered it the same way. I mean, I have 6 kids. And so I keep up with that many people who have their own agendas, their own personalities, their own voices, um, every day, all day. And so to field that many people to me feels very natural. In fact, to think about writing about less than that kind of bores me, to be honest. I don't know that I could write about just 1 or 2 people through the course of 80,000 words. I like to jump from person to person, and to me, I read or have read, Ellen Hildebrand, Jodi Picoult. I mean, those guys are great at kind of doing that, and they're the ones who inspired me to say, okay, I can tell this same story from all these different points of view, and hopefully tell a more balanced story in the process. Because if you only get it from person's point of view, you're not getting the whole story. So it's kind of fun for me to just keep moving around the circle and saying, okay, well, what did you take away from this? What's your perspective? And a lot of times it's very different, which is kind of fun.
I love the way it was written personally, and I always feel like there's a bit of a cliffhanger when that chapter ends, and then you have to wait a little while to go back to what's going
Yeah,
on.
and honestly, that's just what I enjoy reading. Like that's what I read, and so it's how I write as well. Just because it's what I enjoy reading as a reader. Because first of all, I'm a voracious reader. That's what I was before I was a writer. always just reading something. So a good friend gave me advice long, long ago before I started this journey. She said, write what you want to read. So that's what I try to do.
I can imagine that's very good advice.
It's great advice, honestly.
Katie has actually continued her question and asked if there was a particular character that was harder for you to get into their mindset, or was there one that was really easy?
Kaylee was very easy. I mean, people ask me why I wrote her in first person and everybody else in, third, because that's how she came. I mean, she just barged into the story and was like, let me tell you how this is going to go. And I just loved her kind of exuberance and her, yet coupled with this kind of innocence. And I loved her insistence that she was going to tell her story. And I hope I got that across, because I felt like I was her voice. And honestly, when, you go through the publication process and you get setbacks and stuff, she was the one character that kept me going when I was like, yeah, let's just shelve this book and not fight for it, excuse me. And that is what made me keep going, was just her and her voice. Because I think there's a little Kaylee in all of us as women. We look back and that's that little girl we once were, when we were just dumb enough to speak up and believe in things that, the rest of the world would tell us isn't possible. So I love that about her. As far as a character that was hard, I think Jency was probably the hardest. Just because at first when I read her, she was a little cold and reserved. And she took some work to get her to where she was a likable character.
Yeah, I didn't like her at the beginning at all, but I definitely warmed up to her by the end.
Yeah. And then that's part of her story. I mean, she's been through a lot, and she's kind of on guard. When you're writing a character like that, you can make her so guarded that the reader can't access her. And that's how she first came across completely. But hopefully she got there.
I think she did. I have another question here from Emily. And she says, the names in the book, they're all very distinct, unique names. And do you have a reason for that? Do you know people with these names?
Well, it's funny. I had one friend who is very, very Southern. In fact, the novel that I'm working on now is actually set in her hometown. And she came to me right after the book was out. She's like, I just really have a bone to pick with you about these names. This is just not the kind of names that, I'm used to. And I was like, well, give me 5 names of women in your family. And so she starts naming these outrageous names. And I was like, see, these are Southern names. You just don't realize they're normal to you. But these are, I try to pick very distinct kind of Southern sounding, but not run of the mill names, because I think the characters will stand out a little more if their names, sorry, my voice is giving out. If their names are odd or different or whatever. Plus I just like abnormal names. I've just read so many novels, like the heroine is, Kate or Sarah or Susan, and there's nothing against those names, but just for when I write, I try to pick unique names. I don't know. It's just, now it's gotten to be a thing where I like really try to find unique names for every book, just to keep it up.
I liked it because then I was never questioning who was who.
Yeah.
So we have another question here. So where do you get inspiration for your stories and characters? Real life or by reading other stories?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from, to me, like I'll be watching a news report and there'll be this cutaway to, like I said, like the neighbor who says, well, we just thought he was the nicest guy. And I'm like, okay, there's a story. And I keep a notebook and I'm constantly writing those kind of little glimmers down. And I just have tons of those kind of little ideas that come to me. And I say writers have good what ifers. What ifers, like they see something and they go, but what if da 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 da. And that's what I do. I just say, but what, okay, it could be something that happens in my real life. And then I'm like, okay, but what if, what if this didn't happen, or what if this did? And I just play with it and I write it down in I just keep a notebook and I just write it down. And when I'm starting to write a novel, I go back in that notebook and I look at all those different scenarios, and I say it's like making a soup, and I just pick different characters and throw them in the pot, give them a good stir, and see what happens. So I don't know, not very scientific, but
when I was reading it myself, I could really like a lot of different characters, and I would identify somebody that kind of was that character in my life, or somebody
oh, cool.
I know that was a little bit like that. Like for instance, Zell was a really likable character. Although when I came across the part about her being a voyeur, I was a little bit. Can you discuss it a little bit?
Honestly, that I didn't have that figured out. I mean, that part I did have figured out. The other part with kind of the similarity with her son and all that, I didn't have figured out. That came in the writing. Um, I just always knew she walked with a limp, and I couldn't figure out why. And when I came across the reason why, and like why she was sort of self-punishing herself, where she wouldn't get help, and I just think to me, it was almost symbolic of like there's a lot of things that we as women carry unnecessarily because of guilt. And this was an extreme example, but it's like, take a look at what you might be unnecessarily carrying because you feel bad about something. And what does that really mean? And why are we so interested in each other's lives? I mean, that's another thing that, again, I like to take things that are normal to us and like make them extreme. And in her case, she literally was a voyeur. She was looking in somebody's windows, but we kind of all do it via Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing. I think we've become a nation of voyeurs. And I wanted to kind of say, okay, what does this look like? Like, at what point is it not acceptable? And at what point have we gone too far? And so that was just sort of I don't know, a commentary, I guess, I was making as far as like, is it okay to peek in somebody's windows, which we kind of already do that thanks to social media. So I don't know.
Fascinating. So,
yeah.
Very good point. You're making me think.
Well, good. I mean, that's I mean, something I struggle with, just as a consumer, like at what point is enough? I mean, at what point do I need to stop looking at other people's lives and look at my own and handle my own? And, so I look at those kinds of issues in the culture and in my own neighborhood, literally, because I said the setting was my neighborhood. And I just go, okay, what's wrong with this picture? And how can I, like I said, I make it a little extreme for the point, but it's there, it's something we all, I think, in our quiet moments are grappling with. So.
Absolutely. And if we can switch modes a little bit and talk about the title of the book, I'm going to just quote a line from the book. And yet Jency understood there were things she wished were true, and there were what was actually true. She was learning that there was usually a great distance between the two. Can you discuss the title and perhaps that sentence that you wrote?
Little wizard behind the curtain moment. That the book was originally titled "The Summer Society of Sycamore Glen," which is a lot of S's. And we all agreed that had to be changed. So another thing I keep in my writing notebook is a list of possible titles. And so when they wanted to change the titles, I went in and just kind of scanned that list of possible titles. And I was like, okay, what would fit this story? And I had written "The Things We Wish Were True" as a possible title. And so I took it back to my agent, my editor. They loved it. And so then I went back in and wrote that line to make the book actually have something to do with the things we wish were true. So that was sort of a plant. But it is very true. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about, there's our lives as they actually are. And then there's these kind of idealized lives that we wish we had. And I think our job as human beings is to make peace with those things and to know that, okay, here's what I got. Here's what I don't have. And can I be happy with the gap that lies between those two things? And I mean, something, again, I never write about anything that I don't struggle with or grapple with myself. And so if you're reading a book by me, chances are it's not necessarily the situation that you're going to encounter that I've dealt with, but definitely the themes are always going to come out of my own life. So.
I always find it's really interesting when we talk to authors, and there's a little bit, there's like more going on in the story than perhaps you perceive. And so I wonder sometimes, is it your first goal as an author to entertain, or are you trying to make people like question certain things about life in general, or what's your first goal?
My first goal is to make you race through the story because you want to figure out what happens. I mean, that's, my first goal is not to bore you. That's really, I don't want you getting like, I might put this down. This isn't that great. That's my first goal. But yeah, I mean, I want to make you, like you said, you're making me think. I want to make you think. I want to give you something to, I mean, I do want to have like that aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. That's kind of fun. But then when it's all said and done and you're in a book club and you're, or you're with your friend and you're saying, well, what about this? And why'd she keep that secret? And, did she have to keep that secret? Those kinds of things. Those are good things to get us talking. And I think that's what fiction does best is, there's sort of there's an innocuous quality that comes with the story, that it's okay to talk about these things because you're not talking about you. And I'm not sure we would talk about these things if we were talking about ourselves. We can talk about them because it's a fictional character. And yet at the heart of all these things are issues we as real people deal with. And so I think there's a safety that comes in fiction. So.
Oh, that's great. It's really true. So I just have here another question. So it's from Katie, and she says, I thought the pool community was interesting. Definitely gets back to us looking at others' lives as compared to our own. But it's also a way for people to band together. What are your thoughts on the value of community versus some of the downsides?
Well, I mean, like I said, this neighborhood is definitely based on my neighborhood that I live in. If you went to my pool, you'd be like, yep, this is it. I mean, I didn't have to go far. And so I live in that community every summer. And that was one of the things that I started, that got me thinking about writing the book. And this has been several years in the making before I actually wrote it. I would kind of observe every summer this unique aspect of like, we're really in each other's lives every single day for 3 months out of the year. But then, school starts, we all go back into our homes, shut the door and live a whole different life for 9 months. And then we show back up in each other's lives the following June. And it's like, how much can you really know each other 3 months out of the year? And is there a safety in that you don't really know each other, but you have this feeling that you know each other? And so where do we exist between those two things? And, how close are you really if you're only spending 3 months out of the year together? And so that's kind of where I got the idea because it's a closeness, but yet there's a distance there too, because it's a finite period of time. So I don't know if that answers it or not.
No, I think that's a good answer. Katie there's a PS here that I have to actually read out loud. She wrote, I laughed out loud at the line about Zell racing to finish her book club book before the book club dinner. She wrote, been there, done that.
Yeah, we all have. That's why it's in there. So, yep.
You belong to
do I? Well, I do the online book club, the She Reads book club. That's not. It's funny because Ariel Lawhon, my partner, and She Reads, and I started this back when we were primarily readers and wanted to be authors. Now we are both published authors, and the reading has definitely taken a back seat. So we struggle now more than ever. So that's actually where that line came from of like cramming, because we were constantly cramming to read a book so that we could decide whether or not to pick it for the book club and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've definitely been there.
Can you actually, now that you bring it up, it was one of my questions about She Reads. Can you tell us a little bit about that site?
Well, that site is definitely going through transition right now. We just in November announced that we had picked our last book club pick because of just exactly what I explained. I mean, Ariel is writing historical fiction. She's the author of, her newest is called I Was Anastasia. It'll be out this winter, late winter, early spring. and I'm doing the kind of more domestic suspense novels. But we're both, between the two of us, she has 4 boys, I have 6 kids. So that's 10 kids, 2 husbands. We say our unofficial tagline is 10 kids, 2 husbands, and a ton of books. And we just, we can only read so much and we can only get so much done. So stay tuned for what that site will be in 2018. We're toying with taking it in some new directions, including maybe some YouTube videos and some more interactive stuff on Facebook, just because that's a little, famous last words, easier to just hop on and do some live things instead of kind of the manufactured book club thing, it just took so much time to read all these different books and finally pick a book. And that was it was a lot. We just something had to give. So yeah, that's where we are. Who knows? We'll be deciding soon.
You're my favorite kind of author because you've pretty much described my life, but now you're a publisher.
It's all consuming. It's a lot of work, and there's just so many great books out there, and especially when you get into the world and you start making friends with authors, and you just want to give everybody time and you want to give everybody's books attention, and it's almost easier to just go, I'm not doing anything, just because it gets to be a lot. And at the end of the day, the writing has to come first. Both of us have kind of learned that in 2017. That's been a lesson for us, is that the writing really needs to come first. And She Reads is great and we love it, and we don't plan to do away with it, but it's going to have to look different. So
sorry, can you just tell us the URL for that, for anybody who's interested in
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, happy to. It's just www.shereads.org.
Perfect. We'll include it below as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So
yeah, we're on Instagram as at She Reads Book Club, and we're all the usual places. If you search She Reads, you should find us.
Great. So as a voracious reader, and having admitted that you were absolutely a reader before you were an author, can you tell us some of your favorite books?
Oh gosh. You know what I just finished, and I guess it was the time of year as well as anything, sometimes you just hit the right book at the right time. I just read it, The City Baker's Guide to Country Living. Was a very sweet story. It was exactly what I needed. Perfect for this time of year, the snow falling. It's very cold in the time that it's being written, and it kind of takes you through the fall and the holidays and the new year and the early spring. And so, if you're looking for just a good cozy read, I really enjoyed that. I don't even know that author at all. Just had it, and it was one of those mood things. Kind of perennial favorites, Alice Hoffman. Sorry, y'all have to bear with, my voice is going out. Alice Hoffman, Jodi Picoult, Ellen Hildebrand, Sarah Addison Allen, her magical realism set in North Carolina mountains. Love her. I love any true crime, pretty much. I'm a true crime junkie. Just finished the book For Lacey, about Lacey Peterson. Her mom, Sharon Rocha, wrote that book, and I listened to it on audio. It was fabulous. So yeah, I don't know. My tastes vary from very cozy, like foodie, magical realism to, murder and suspense. It's all over the place.
That's awesome. We have another question here that says, can you walk us through the process of publishing the book? How long did it take you to draft it? What was the editing process like? Did you face any big hurdles? Is the end product close to what it looked like when you started, or is it different?
Okay, so I had written 5 novels in the inspirational market. So if you find me there, they're very different. Much more North Carolina coastal romance, very, very sweet. Wanted to write something a little more suspenseful, a little darker. Just basically took my career back down to nothing. No agent, no publisher, no nothing. Wrote this book that you just read in a vacuum. Just wrote it just for me, just to get back to the joy of writing again. And yeah, I think the book that you read is pretty close. It really is. I mean, yeah, there were some plot changes and some help from my agent, who was wonderful. But I found her through this book. I mean, this is the book I went out like anybody. I just started fresh, and I queried New York agents like you do with a letter, and it was a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, and found my agent, and she's just been wonderful. We're now on book number 3 together, and talking about book number 4, and it, this book will always be special because of that, because it brought me to where I am. The acquiring editor I'm with, the agent I have, all came out of this sweet little story about this neighborhood that existed only for a time. It was just me and that story and these characters. My husband didn't know what I was writing. My best friend didn't know what I was writing. And there was something very pure and sweet and wonderful about that. So I tell people all the time, if you're, feeling jaded or burnt out or whatever, try to get back to just the pure love of writing and go back however you have to do that. And that's what I did with the story. So no, not a lot overall changed. The publishing process was hard. I don't think they're ever not hard. This is not a business for the faint of heart. It gets hard, but anything worth doing does. And, once I found my editor, Jody, and it's just been great ever since. So I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but that's how it was.
That's a great answer. I mean, we've heard from a lot of authors about the process, and a lot of our people listening, I'm not sure if they're writing books or if they, I feel like a lot of voracious readers, as we do have in the book club, everybody's perhaps silently got their own novels somewhere in them.
Yeah. And that's why I say that. That's why I always say, I mean, was it easy? No, it never is, but nothing worth doing ever is. I mean, being a mom, that's not easy. Being pregnant, that's not easy. I mean, nothing I've ever done that I really feel proud of was easy when I look back. And this book, definitely same thing. They're all hard. I'm in a really hard place with the book I'm on right now. I pretty much hate this book right now, but you just got to power through and trust. I'm a huge planner. Like I love planners and bullet journals and all that stuff. And I have a little card that I keep in my planner that says, hold the vision, trust the process. And that's what I have to do. Every single book, hold the vision, trust the process. So
I like that. I think that's a good saying. I think we should take that away with us.
Yeah, I mean, every single one's different, but not one has ever been easy.
Fair. What are your plans for 2018? Will you finish the book you're currently working on? Anything you really want to
do? Well, that's a good question. Will I? I don't know. Yeah, hopefully I will, because I need to, because it's due. Yeah, so I'm working on edits for that, and then I will start a new one, Lord willing. I'll turn this one in. I think it's due January 26th. Turn the edits in on that, and then while my editor and I have a developmental editor and a acquiring editor, they'll mess with that, and I'll be working on a new idea. I'm always either editing or writing a new book, always. Just because, I don't know, my brain just works that way. I'm always thinking of the next story. I can't stop it. I don't want to stop it.
Like a good author in my experience.
It's sometimes it's a sickness. Sometimes you just want to take a mental break, but the characters are they got a lot to say, and they're in a long line of my turn. So
keeping you up at night?
Definitely, yeah. If I wake up at night, that's I call it we're off to the races. As soon as I wake up, man, my brain is engaged and here we go. So it's hard to go back to sleep.
So you mentioned that you kind of changed genres. Your 5th book, the one that we just finished, was a little bit of a departure from the genre you perhaps were writing prior. So do you see yourself doing that again? Is there something else that you'd like to write, or is this kind of where you think you've met your match?
Who knows? I mean, I have one kind of outlier idea. I don't know that I would necessarily do anything else after that. That's the only thing that I would think maybe I would do something different. No, I like what I'm doing. I like domestic suspense. I mean, they call it that. I don't. I just think it's women's fiction, but whatever. Um, I like what I'm doing. I've got tons of ideas within this particular genre. I'd like to be able to write them all. I keep this. This will not surprise you. Here it comes again. I keep a list of books I would like to write, and so I'm just like, Lord, let me live long enough to write all of these, and so that's it. That's all I want to do.
I noticed in some of the authors that you pointed out, they were a little bit more on the mystical side, a couple of them. So I was just wondering if you ever thought you might veer in that direction.
No, I think the reason that I like magical realism so much is it taps into something that I know I can't or won't do. I have one idea that's floats out there that I would love to write, but I don't think I'm there yet. I like to write. I like to read things that I know I won't write. I just think that there's a purity in that there's no crossover. And when I'm reading that, I'm not thinking about, how'd she do that? And when you're reading what you write, you are kind of always trying to study it, and then it feels like work. So I guess magical realism, yeah, I just like that they're doing something I'm not going to try to do. So there's a relaxation that comes with that, I guess. I don't know. And just a sweetness. I just think, there's so much wonder in the world. And I think magical realism taps into that and just the side of life that we don't understand. I guess that's why I like it.
That sounds like a very good reason. I like the escapism makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
exactly.
Well, Marybeth, thank you so much for being with us this evening, especially during the holidays.
Yeah.
I do have one last question.
Thank you.
I'd love to know how many of your children have read your books.
I think one child has read the very first one. Other than that, nobody has read anything. They refuse to. And I'm so happy with that. I'm so happy. I'm like, don't read it. That'd be great if you never read any of it. So, yeah.
And your
yeah,
husband?
they always get, oh yeah, my husband reads them. He waits until they are out in arc form, like when they're in the galley form, and then he reads them. So, he won't read anything prior to that, and I don't want him to. I mean, he wants to read it when it's pretty much cooked. Not much is going to change. So, yes, he gets the A+ husband award for reading all of these books, even though they're not really his thing. He's more of like a historical, not even a novel, like a historical book. He's more nonfiction guy.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
And does your son let you read his?
He probably would like it if I would read it. I've told him it's got to be done before I'll read it, and I'm told him I'm not going to go easy on him, so he needs to be ready for whatever I come out with. And so I think he's a little nervous to give it to me, but I was like, I'll give you an honest answer, and that's, to blow smoke at somebody is not going to help them a bit, and so that's what we all need, make it better. So.
No, absolutely. You'll serve him much better if you're honest with him.
Yeah, but I think he is. He's like, I'm not giving it to you then. I just want to hear nice things. So.
Well, it must be hard to take criticism about something, especially that you've invested so much time in.
Yeah. Exactly. Especially, I mean, for him, it's his very first foray. So I'm like, better to give it to somebody else first and not give it to me. So.
Fair enough. Well, thank you again so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
We look forward to your next book.
Oh, and thank you, Katie. I saw your comment. Thank you, Angela. It's very fun. Nice talking to you guys. And find me on all the different social media. I'm around. Would love to catch up with you on Instagram or Facebook, wherever. So, I'm just at Marybeth Whalen. Very easy.
Very good. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks. It's been fun. Bye.